Here we'll talk about the relationship between computers and the study of translation, in which some kind of pragmatic awareness is also very important. For more than half a century, researchers have been trying to develop some devices which may help us to translate from one language to another easily. But unfortunately, most of these researchers, despite leaving aside some minor successes, largely have been unsuccessful, and we are unable to yield the desired results in this field. Word for word translation, which has been a goal of some of studies, do not fulfill the purpose. And there could be multiple reasons for that. For example, different languages have different words for different mental representations or different objects in the real world, and they also got different word orders. Therefore, it becomes very difficult to go for word to word translation, especially through machines, because the variation in orders between different languages create a lot of difficulty for the automatic translation of the machines. Similarly, we also know that metaphors of one language usually are not translatable similarly in other language, and other languages do have different kind of representations for the meaning which are conveyed by the metaphors of one language. So metaphors also create a problem for machine translation, and again this is very important pragmatic area, because metaphors are usually based on sociocultural and pragmatic knowledge of a culture to which a language represents. There are multiple other reasons for the lack of success in word-for-word translation through machines, and one important reason or problem may be the pragmatic one, because it's not easy to translate the pragmatic or contextual meaning of one word into the pragmatic or situational meaning into another language. Usually there are two models of translation which are followed for some kind of computer based or machine translation. Simply speaking, the first model is the transfer translation model, in which one set of rules or procedures is prepared from translation from language A to B. For example, we got two languages A and B, and we have to translate from A to B. So we will have a set of procedures for the translation from A to B, and then we have another set for the reverse translation from B to A. So therefore, in order to conduct a translation between two languages, we will probably have a number of procedures and rules. The rules would have to be completely explicit, and a set of procedures is in each direction would be needed, because translation is not symmetrical. So we will have different procedures for both way translations. For this purpose, if a machine translation has to be established, let's see what we need to do. We need to establish, even if we have to set machine translation for a small number, let's say 6 languages, we will have to set 30 procedures or 30 sets of procedures would be needed to translate each language into all other 5 languages, because we have a separate procedure for the state translation from A to B, and separate procedure for the reverse translation from B to A. An alternative system is of interlingual translation model, which is based on certain basic semantic elements of each language, and it is assumed that they can be put into a certain form, usually which can be represented abstractly, and then they are encoded into other languages. First, they are encoded in the real language in some abstract form, and then they are again encoded in the other language in which they are being translated. This would require 12 procedures, one decoding procedure and one encoding procedure for each 6 languages. Assume we are setting a kind of machine or software for 6 languages translation, 6 languages in between translation. This model is simpler than the other one, which is transfer translation model, that would require 30 procedures. This only requires 12 procedures. However, it is also very difficult because it would not be possible to develop clear semantic representations for the words in a language. We don't know the extent to which sentences can be decomposed into the kinds of abstract semantic representations needed for this kind of interlingual translation. So this becomes a challenge, and this is still a challenge for many translators who are working in relation to machine or computer translation. This is a brief view in front of you, a kind of graphic representation of transfer translation and interlingual translation. And you could see from the figure that on the top, transfer translation, it's very complex. There are so many lines crossing each other, so you could see it's very complex. But interlingual translation, on the very face of it, looks simpler, but still you need 12 procedures for a simple 6-language translation system. And there are difficulties related to translation in either model, based on what one language encodes may not be encoded in the other languages, because there would possibly be different mental representations for the same concept in different cultures or in the minds of the speakers of different languages. So these various or different mental representations of various concepts might create a difficulty for the translators or for any device which is created to develop a translation between various languages.